understand. Okay, what we were being
Sorry.
recorded. Okay.
Sorry.
What we understand at this point is that during the first 3 months, January through March of 2020, revenue greatly exceeded expectations of the budget. So the actual significantly outperformed. This was due to two factors. One was the accelerated receipt of spring brunch funds, and the other was that both the spring brunch and the January fundraiser, which kind of substituted for the forum, significantly outperformed the budgeted amounts. So I think in each case by $5,000 or $6,000. So that was very good news. At the same time, expenses for the first 3 months came out about where expected. And so the overall story of the first 3 months was very positive. We went from near zero assets at the beginning of the calendar year to somewhat short of $50,000 in the bank by the end of March. However, looking ahead, I'd like the Central Committee to understand that the picture is not so rosy and we can't sit on our laurels and do nothing. If we were to do a balance sheet, which we've not done as a formal exercise, it would show a liability of about $25,000 in estimated costs for the brunch. So in other words, we have all this revenue that we collected for the brunch. We have not spent the money to actually have the brunch. And so there is an implied liability there that at some point we anticipate having a brunch, which will cost us $25,000. In addition, the other big fundraiser that was anticipated, the annual gala, is looking less and less likely, and thus the expectation that it will generate the expected needed revenue is looking less and less likely. Against this backdrop, clearly the role of the fundraising committee that Linda announced last month is critical. We need to continue raising funds. Now, there's one more factor that's emerged from our planning, our budget planning for the upcoming year. We can expect that the Central Committee burn rate, that is the rate at which we spend for ongoing expenses, averages around $3,000 a month. And that rises and falls based on what particular bills are due in a given month. But as an average, a ballpark estimate is around $3,000 a month. So if you take our, safe, and I'm talking round numbers here, if we have $50,000 in the bank, but we really expect that at some point we'll be liable for $25,000 in these costs for a brunch or some equivalent, that reduces our balance by half. And our burn rate is around $3,000 a month, and that will be more if our currently laid off staff is called back to work. So the bottom line is that looking ahead towards the end of the calendar year, if nothing else is done, we could be back to near zero assets. So I want to just put the committee on notice that our ongoing fundraising is critical. We can talk about reducing expenses, but we need to be aware of our budget outlook, and that's our analysis as of now. I'll be glad to take any questions.
This is Susie. Thank you, Dave, for pointing out that the $3,000 burn rate is without the cost of having our employee I think that is significant. We're very used to having an employee, and once things get back to normal, quote unquote, it's very difficult for us to put on a large event, I think, without an employee in place. So we need to give some thought to how we do that in future.
Thank you.
And Dave, this is Laura.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to thank you for that excellent report. That's exactly what we need to have sort of the highlights of the situation, and to understand it, from the 10,000 and 5,000 and 1,000 foot view. It's extremely clear. So thank you and your team very, very much, because this is what we've needed for a long time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Lori Rodich has a question.
Yeah, I had a question. After the District 14 delegation meeting, I was under the impression that they had made contributions to the Central Committee. And I don't see it, I didn't know if other delegations did the same, and I didn't see it reflected in the Treasurer's report, and I didn't see it in the Finance Committee report, that if there's revenue coming in from those activities.
I'm not sure what you're referring to, Lori. People have made contributions, and I can't off the top of my head remember whether the delegation from D14 did, but there have been contributions made by various elected officials and various delegations for various things. After the town hall meetings, we put out a solicitation to all of the people who had registered for the town halls that we had had so far, and asked them for $20 for 2020. Because, we said, hey, did you like this event? And would you, if you want to do more, we need your help. And we collected around $350 from that. So we didn't get a great response to that. We're going to do it again, and maybe we'll get a little bit more. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, or if it's something else.
I thought the dollar amount was larger and that it was from the politicians.
Where did you hear that?
I thought I heard it from Craig Zucker.
This is Susie. I think you may be referring to something related to the Dollars for Dollars campaign.
No.
Or something, but some of the legislators from D14 did make some larger contributions.
Including Craig Zucker.
Yes, but they were earlier.
Uh-huh.
And they wouldn't be reflected in the report Dave Shoemaker just gave us. His report doesn't go into that small of a detail.
Okay.
It's more of a summary report.
Right. Right, thank you. Okay, any other questions? All right, do we have a motion to accept the Finance Committee report?
So move, Kaufman.
Okay,
Did Scott have a question?
Hold on, somebody has a question.
I can't see. If you raise your hand, I can't see. You have to put it in the chat. I'm looking at my screen on different things.
I think Scott was trying to speak.
I'll just yell. Hey, Dave, thanks for taking the deep dive into these numbers. Just off the top of your head and informally, do you have any recommendations? Is this an expense issue, or do we just need to raise more money? Or both?
So we haven't taken a hard look at reducing costs, Scott, in all honesty. I think the first conversation about it was that there wasn't a whole lot of room to further reduce costs, but we're not averse to taking a look at that. But I don't think we can cut costs, and not raise revenue, right? So I think the important point is to set that benchmark of, there's a certain dollar amount, whether it's 3,000 or whether we get it down to 2,500, that it just costs to keep the lights on, to keep the phone running and the copier copying and all of that. And so ongoing
And Dan,
revenue generation is critical. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I second the
just kinda
motion.
keeping score. Yeah.
Okay, it's already been seconded.
Okay.
Okay, Sarah Wallach has a question.
Thank you, and thanks to Dave Shoemaker for putting this together. I just had a good question to understand the spend, and so I understand our burn rate is 3,000 roughly, give or take, as was mentioned, and then potentially this liability of the event of 25K if and when we were to host that. I was also curious about any costs related to the upcoming primary and then obviously the general in November. If we have sort of captured what our expenses might look like for that. So just be curious to know, if that's incorporated or if some that's might be on top of what you've already mentioned. That's it. Thanks.
So Sarah, that's a really great question. And the short answer is no, we haven't figured all that out yet. So I've had a couple of conversations with people much more experienced than I about things like the sample ballot that is a traditional product of the Central Committee for, in advance of the fall election. Susie and others will know a lot more about what it costs and how it's funded. And that's a whole nother level of expense that is not included in what I've presented. So we need to do that, but we haven't done it yet.
Susie.
Usually the only real direct expense that we have had is purchasing pizza and sodas and things like that for the volunteers who are in the office on election days. And we're not going to have those expenses this year.
Yeah, I do have one expense when we get to the treasurer's report that I need the Central Committee to approve related to election. So when we get to the treasurer's report, I'll ask.
That's later though.
Yeah. Okay, anything else on the finance report? Okay, hearing no other discussion, I am going to take a vote. All in favor of approving the finance report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Just Aaron or everybody?
No, aye.
Aye.
We're all muted.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Dave Kuhns is here. Dave, do you want to
Sure.
share your report? Can you do that, or you want me to share it? I think I can find it.
Sure, that's fine. Sorry I was late. I was on a work call.
What's fine?
If you want to pull it up, that's...
I'll try. I got to find it. Hold on.
I did not hear the second for the approval of the Finance Committee. Who seconded?
That was done a long time ago.
Well, I could second it. This is great.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was seconded by Laura, I think.
Okay.
I couldn't be sure, but yeah, Greg seconded. You could say several.
Greg, I want to second it.
You could say several.
Okay.
Okay. So there's your report, Dave Kuhns. Go.
I can't see it. Are you sharing it?
Oh, I thought I was. Maybe. Oh, no, I'm not. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Okay, there. How's that?
Good. So we didn't have a lot of expenses in the past month. If you go down, you can see the our profit and loss statement. So we brought in a little bit of income, and then we had about almost $5,000 in expenses, and so our net income was negative $4,500. Balance sheet detail is the next page, which is just all of the transactions, what they were, etc. And then 3 bank statements. As you can, you'll notice that the admin statement, the only thing we've had is a maintenance fee, so they don't send you a statement unless you have a transaction. So you'll notice the statement date is March 20th, but that is the last statement that we've had. So
So this is the no, that's the non-federal. This is the admin account right here. Right
I think rather uneventful. That is my report.
Okay, any questions of Dave on the on the treasurer's report? Okay, hearing none. I'll take a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. I think Daniel moved, seconded by Dave Schumacher. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? All right, carried, thank you. Let me go back just 1 second. Erwin reminds me that we forgot to adopt the consent agenda. So I'll take a motion to adopt the consent agenda as amended. We're moving the Rules Committee, deleting the Rules Committee out of there because there's no report. We're moving the student members report down to the main agenda, and we are moving communications down to the main agenda. Can we accept the rest of that? Is there a motion to do that, please?
Movement, so moved.
By Moomin, moved by Moomin. Is there a second?
Scott Goldberg, second.
Seconded by Scott. Any discussion? We already had a discussion, right? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. Fundraising committee. I'm going to call on Greg and
Scott is on. He said he was on.
yeah, Scott's on.
Good. Can you see me or can you just hear me? I don't see my picture, but I can see everybody else.
I'm going to put up your report here, Scott, in a second. I mean, Greg, in a second.
We can't see you, Greg.
We can't.
Yeah, I don't know why. Or maybe I can press this button. You'll see me in a minute.
We see your name.
Yeah. Once Linda.
Let me see. Ask to start video there. See if that works.
Okay, start my video. Okay.
So everyone knows several members came a little bit late, but all members are now in attendance.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, I'm putting this up here. Greg, can you see it?
I can see it. And Scott, can you see it?
Scott Comer.
Yes.
Will you unmute Scott Comer, Michael? Scott Comer.
Okay.
Here I am. He's unmuted.
There he goes. Okay, go ahead, Greg.
Okay, first, when we heard from the finance report that we need the money desperately, and I want to say I believe we're putting together the team. Of course, Scott's the co-chair of it. A good plan for bringing money in. And I wanted to first make sure we have everyone listed for the committee. Have Linda, myself, Scott, Laura, Tony, and maybe we'll get Mimi to come on board. But I want to make sure I don't miss
Yes, Daniel.
Yes.
And Daniel. Okay, so we have, those are our members. Okay, and Daniel. So thank you. So the committee has been working very hard. And I'm excited to say, and Scott, in all honesty, pretty much put together most of this. Of course, the committee, all the committee members have contributed, but a tremendous, as you can see, agenda that if the board here thinks we should move forward, we will. So with that, since we announced the committee members, I'm gonna ask Scott to take it over because our first event is gonna be May 28th in a couple weeks. So go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you to everybody who is a member of the fundraising committee. Everybody's done outstanding work, and this wouldn't have been possible without you. So I want to say that up top. I will run through the list of events briefly, and then address the first event that we have scheduled for May 28th with Cameron Hardesty, who is the former White House floral designer, and Jason, I still don't know how to pronounce his last name, Edmund Glass's husband from Brookside Gardens. So after that event in early June, we're going to have a Pride celebration. June is LGBT Pride Month. We asked Tony Hausner, and Tony graciously agreed to approach Congressman Raskin about securing Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney to be our special guest for that event. And the congressman has agreed, so that's great news. We're working with, or I'm working with the congressman's scheduler now to nail down a date that works for him. The good news about Pride Month is it's all month long, so we're pretty flexible. You can see the next two guests that I have listed are Jamal Brown or Evan Wolfson. After speaking with Samantha Jones, she and I both decided that we would feature another special guest who I will, I won't reveal just yet because we haven't approached her and that ball hasn't gotten rolling, so that would be unfair. We move on to Juneteenth, the Juneteenth celebration, which sort of commemorates the liberation of about 250,000 slaves in Texas and sort of marked the end of slavery in the United States before the 13th Amendment was adopted. It's very widely celebrated among the African American community. And so I approached Congresswoman Demings and Mayor Bottoms to participate in the event. Congresswoman Demings has agreed pending, her schedule. I'm still waiting to hear back from Mayor Bottoms. She was connected to me through a mutual friend at the Biden Super PAC. And Cory Booker has agreed to film
Scott, I'm sorry. Could you tell me who is Mayor Bottoms?
Susie, please don't interrupt. Let him go, and then
Okay.
I'll tell you. Okay, go ahead.
And Cory Booker has agreed to film a brief conclusionary video for all those in attendance. And I'm hoping that will be a surprise to all of the attendees. We move on to July 4th, which, or around July 4th, for sort of musical celebrations of Independence Day. And we have, I just spoke with Congressman Andy Kim's National Finance Director today, and she has agreed to, or the congressman has agreed to participate by playing a few pieces on his cello. Laura Henderson has been extremely helpful in securing Kip and Martin as one of our performers, who's a tremendous folk singer. And I'm working on getting my ex, Tadra Call, who is a Broadway star and all around sort of like an entertainer, to sing for us as well. That would definitely boost tickets among young people. If we can go down to the final two events that I have. Women's Equality Day is mid-August. I believe it's August 19th. And our special guest, the guaranteed special guest that I would love to have, and I've spoken to Frank Islam about and Linda, is Senator Mikulski. And in addition to her, I would like to have Senator Gillibrand, given all of her activism on women's rights issues in the Senate. I will connect with her chief of staff as that date approaches. Then we end the schedule with Hispanic Heritage Month. And those two guests are sort of in flux. Joaquin Castro, the Castro brothers in general, aren't on the best terms with the Biden campaign and are not playing all that nice with party leadership. So we'll see what happens there. Congresswoman Torres Small, I reached out to about a week ago. I haven't heard back. I just wanted to feel her out and get a sense of what her obligations were. So that's where we are.
That is fantastic. Susie, you had a question. I'm sorry. What was your question? Susie.
It's been answered. Thank you.
Yeah, she wanted to know who Keisha Lance Bottoms was. But...
Okay. Okay. It
Mayor of
was
Atlanta.
answered in the chat, I guess. I didn't see it.
Okay. Let me, before other questions, state that, as you can see, this is really a national agenda. This could be done by the Biden campaign, by Jamie's campaign, but we're doing it for the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee. But after much discussion, we wanted to make sure that the average member of the Democratic Party in Montgomery County could attend. So all these events, at least the first one, will be just $20. I believe Linda has a theme that we're using, 20 for 2020. So I wanted to let everyone know that this is going to be very reasonable price with these top names that we have. But we also, as a committee, agreed 100% that we're going to ask each Central Committee member to try to sell for each event 10 tickets. And we say try, because we know we can't force anyone. But if you could do that, each one of us, then we'll sell to the public. And hopefully this will be very profitable for us to do the work that we have to do. So Linda, that's all I had. Open for questions.
Yeah, before we take it to questions, I want to mention two other little pieces of this. Just in terms of the forum and Founders Circle Club that we have, which is the $500 and $1,000 plus donors. We are going to have an event also at the end of May for them with Senator Van Hollen. Just talking, sort of giving them sort of an insider look at the Biden campaign and the campaign for Senate. Scott Comer and I will be putting that together. And so those of you who are members of the forum, you will be getting information on that in the next few days. The other thing we're going to do is, or other thing I want to do is reach out to the trustees, also on a Zoom call prior to the call with the trustees. I mean, prior to the call with the forum members. And also do a sort of an update, check in with them, but then also do a solicitation of them for contributions to support the Central Committee. So those aren't going to be anything like, that's not going to be anything like this, but you know, we're trying to raise money. And as I mentioned, we are going to put out another call for funds or for contributions following the town halls, the last two town halls that we had. So now I'll open it up for questions. And if you want to put your questions in the chat. Okay, I have a question from Lori. Oh, no, that's a question about the meeting. Sorry. Lori's asking, will the meeting be locked since all members are in attendance? Daniel's asking a question about his forum level donors check. You may either pay it by mail or pay it online. It's up to you. If you make out a check, we'll talk about it, Daniel. We'll talk about it after this meeting. Okay, hold on, I'm getting lost here. Let's see. Aaron, you want to make a comment?
Yes. I would just say that a lot of the Central Committee solicitations go into my promotions or my social folder or spam. So maybe Michael Tardif or somebody who's a lot smarter on tech issues than I am can figure out a way. But like when I read the weekly newsletter, even it's not in my regular mail. So I think that's maybe why you only got $350, because I would have given, but I didn't see after the District 18 town hall, I didn't see the solicitation.
Okay, well, it's not too late.
Okay, but I just think it's an ongoing problem because most people have Gmail these days.
Yeah, well, I'll let Michael address that when we get to communications, okay? Because, you know, I think he has an answer for that, but I'll let him address it. Susie.
I think I'm on. Okay. One of my Zooms earlier today, we discussed asking people to contribute the stimulus checks that they really didn't need, to contribute that amount to USPS. But perhaps we could make an appeal to people to contribute their stimulus checks to MCDCC.
Okay, that's a good idea. Scott Goldberg, did you want to make a comment? Or did you make it already, Scott?
I think he made it.
He made it.
Is that a combination between Goldberg and Comer?
No, I said Goldberg.
Okay, just making sure. I just wanted to commend Greg and Scott on their work. It's a very impressive plan. I'm excited to be a part of it.
And the committee.
Laura Henderson has a comment.
Yeah, mine is in the same vein as Scott. I just wanted to say that it is really an incredibly dynamic dream team. In case any of you are thinking of joining it, it's a phenomenal group of hardworking people all working together and you know, we're all learning so much from Scott Comer, like so much. I feel like I'm getting a fundraising 401 course, and it's been fantastic. So if any of you want to join, I can't tell you how much I'm learning and enjoying it.
Sarah, did you want to make a comment, or do you want the comment in the chat to speak for itself?
Well, sure, I can expand on it. I think from what I understand, people who've received the stimulus check, the money they needed, I think it sounds a little bit out of touch to ask people for the money they've gotten when, you know, 30 million people are unemployed. It's just, we gotta make sure that we are aware of the suffering, right? Even as you're making the ask.
I think people know whether they need it or not.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I got on the email today that says if it's May 15th, you should have had your ballot in or sent to you, and I have got nothing, and I have no neighbors that have received anything yet.
Okay, we're going to get to that in a second. Harold, earlier, David Naiman put in the chat that the ballots, and I'm sure that we'll talk about this on the Board of Election report, the ballots were later than we thought getting mailed. So they didn't finish mailing the ballots until yesterday. So hopefully you'll get them next day or so.
I understand. The reason why I was late getting in is because somebody along the way has translated my normal ID name to get onto things. They left out a third D in my email name, and they kept saying password, email, and until I actually got to see what they had, I realized I have the wrong name there. So whoever checks on that, I would appreciate you giving me a telephone call, and I'll explain what is wrong. Is that possible? Is that possible?
Yes.
Who is in charge of that?
Well, one of either I or Michael Tardif will give you a call. Okay.
Okay, but that's why I was late and didn't know what you had covered. And I'm sitting here poking buttons here. Finally, I got help through another source. And that's why I came in late. Sorry. That's
all right. So Scott Comer just privately chatted me that he had to take an important call. But Greg is still here. So are there any further questions on the fundraising committee's report? Okay. It is a great committee, to echo what Laura said. It's really a lot of fun, actually.
It's fun.
And yeah, we're having a good time. Oh, there, you're back. Okay, and this is tremendous work. I do want to mention that all of those events will be virtual. We're planning them as virtual events. I think that's all we can do at this point. We may have an in-person event at some point, I don't know. Before we leave, well, I will now take a motion to, I don't know if we need a motion. There's really not a report. Do you think, Erwin, do you think we need a motion to accept that report? It's just kind of a list of events.
Well, I mean, it's now an official committee, just like
all right.
the others.
Okay. So I'll take a motion to adopt the fundraising committee's report. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Lori. Is there a second?
I seconded Mimi.
Mimi seconds.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone.
We had a pretty robust discussion. Is there any other discussion? All right, great. All in favor of doing these great events, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thank you. And Scott and Greg, you heard earlier about how we need the money, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna go back. Thank you, guys. I
gotta go get some.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the agenda now. Let's see. Partnerships and outreach. I put that on the agenda. I'm not sure. I don't really think that we have a report there. I did want to report that we
Well-
have kind of expanded this partnership and outreach plan and added some members. And Pam, did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I could. It's very, very brief. So I think just as Linda said, we looked at being able to expand to really go back and working with our clubs and caucuses and, really beefing up the outreach committee to pull those groups back together. We thought that it could possibly include a relationship with the trustees, but we have not met yet. We did not get an opportunity to meet, so we will be meeting after this meeting and we'll have something to report the next time.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, I forgot that I had moved the communications committee report off of the consent agenda. So let's take that up now. Communications, Michael Tardif. You have a
Sure. Just let me pull something up and share my screen. It'll be very quick. Just give me a second here. You're going to see all yourselves for a minute. And I'm going to pull this over. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I just want to briefly report on all the virtual events we've held since we've gone into isolation. Here's the complete list. We've completed all 8 legislative town halls for all 8 legislative districts. And those are the registration counts in the right-hand column. We also had the Judicial Candidates Forum this week. And so our total attendance for these 9 events was 1,689 in the last 5 weeks, which is just terrific. And we've gotten some very positive feedback from legislators and from attendees, and not a single complaint. Next week, if you had a chance to look at the newsletter draft that I sent out this afternoon, on the 19th, we're having a vote by mail, everything you need to know session. Mimi was the impetus for this. She contacted Dr. Zalea at the Board of Elections, and he's going to do a 1-hour orientation on everything that you need to know about vote by mail for the primary. And then the next day, Council Member Andrew Friedson reached out and asked if we would organize a virtual town hall on his behalf. And this is the topic of his town hall, and he has guest speakers. So the effort continues. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Yeah, and do you want to announce about?
Oh, yes, thank you. Sorry. And he's on the call. He's on the call tonight. We have a new member of the communications team.
Want to put him up there? His video up there?
Yeah. Let me stop sharing.
Yeah.
Are you there, Ben? There he is.
Hello.
And Ben's an undergrad at Oxford, and he's a veteran or alum of Congressman Raskin's Democracy Summer. And he is fluent in MailChimp and conversant in WordPress. And he has decided to take on the challenge of learning the Gutenberg dialect of WordPress. So very happy to have him as part of the team.
Yeah, happy to be joining.
Hi, Ben. Welcome.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you for
Thanks
joining
doing
us.
this. We're
No
so
problem.
happy to have you.
And he came to us through the voter engagement session. So
Yeah.
thank you,
So there
Jasmine
go.
and Marie.
Plug for voter engagement, which has a session this weekend on Saturday, right?
That's right.
Yes.
9 to 11.
9 to 11 Saturday.
Yes, thank you, Jasmine. 9 to 11 Saturday. If you haven't been, and even if you have been, they are well worth attending. Laura Henderson had a question. Laura, you must be muted. Are you muted,
Yes.
Laura? There you go.
For the May 19th event, it's great that we're having that on vote by mail. I just wondered if it was possible to also do that in Spanish. And for the May 20th event, post-pandemic, planning life after COVID, also wondered if we could do some of that in Spanish. And I didn't see who the speakers were for that particular event. And the last question is, it's exciting to see that D20 got 292 people. D18 only had 150. And I was wondering, Michael, if you had any idea of like, was there more outreach? How on earth did they get almost 300 people for D20?
They're motivated. I don't have any insight into that. I know that the events were held on different nights of the week. Some of them were held on Sunday. We had a lot of, at times we had events that were competing. For example, for D39, there was the state Senate was taking testimony on unemployment, and that session went on for 10 hours, and they had over 1,200 witnesses. So we were competing against that for the D39 session. Events that were held on Monday nights, I don't have the day of the week here, and I don't remember by heart, but Councilmember Hucker has been holding weekly events on Monday nights as well. It's inevitable. I mean, there's going to be conflicting events, but otherwise I don't really have any insight on why some attendance was higher than others. And D20 was definitely an outlier. They were just off the charts.
And then the question about the Spanish and also the speakers for the post-pandemic planning.
Yes, I believe Dr. Zelaya is a native Spanish speaker, so I'd be happy to ask him to repeat the event in Spanish. I think he's done it in Spanish once already for other groups. And the other event that is Councilmember Friedson's event, I don't think any of the panelists are native Spanish speakers. So that might be a bit of a challenge unless we can get a translator.
Yeah. One thing we can do is if we, in terms of Councilman Friedson's event, that's kind of up to Councilman Friedson to find somebody in a way. But for our event, one thing we could do is we could do closed captioning if we had somebody who could do that.
I think it'd be better just repeat it on another night.
Repeat it? Okay. I'm okay with either.
And we could leave that for Councilmember Friedson. If he's able to find an interpreter, we could repeat that event as well. I think it would be too difficult to try to translate it into Spanish in real time.
Yeah, so my only suggestion on the Councilmember Friedson event would be, Michael, if you're in touch with him and can reach out and just say that we had the recommendation that if he could find somebody, we so need to be mobilizing people of all backgrounds and to begin to show that, particularly during this time where digital is the only way. I would really love to encourage him to try to do that.
Sure, I'm happy to ask him.
Great.
Yep. We'll be talking to him tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions of Michael on communication? Okay, I just want to say again, thank you, Michael, for everything you're doing here. It's just, you're just doing yo person's work. And I also want to give a shout out to Brad German, whose idea it was to do the town halls. He also has been working, and this is a great team. And I think in a lot of ways, because of the work that you all are doing, we're, as a central committee, more visible and active than we were before we were quarantined. So
yeah, I just want to echo the comments. Brad's not on the call tonight, but I call him the ideas man. I'm the guy who executes. He's the guy who comes up with the ideas. And the town halls were his idea, and he also came up with the ad campaign that we've been running in the newsletter. So it's just terrific, and now I'm really excited to have Ben on the team as well.
Great, thank you. All right, everybody's clapping, you can see them. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the agenda. Thank you for that. Okay, now, the student members report. Aline and Katie.
Hi. So we had our application due on May 1st. And we're right now planning on accepting everyone because we got 5 applicants and 4 of them are from District 16. So that'll be interesting. So we probably will not be able to do the original structure that we were hoping for, where like each fellow had a mentor that was like corresponding with their district, just because of the applicants that we have. But they're all very qualified and we're very excited to have them. So as of right now, we're hoping to send out the email tomorrow welcoming them. And then on next Sunday, I believe the 23rd, have like a Zoom to welcome them all, and we will hope to have as many of you guys there as can attend, and so we can all meet each other and begin the fellowship.
Great. If you want to use the MCDCC's MCDCC Zoom account, you need to let either Michael or myself know, and you know that account can be used if you want to. I don't know what Zoom account you're using, but we we can take up to 500 people on ours. I don't know if you'll need that many. But
probably not.
Yeah, so let us know if you want to use our Zoom account. Like the
Thank you very
official.
much.
Yeah. Katie, do you have anything to add? Katie? I know she's here. I guess not. Okay. Anything else, Juan? Did you, you're kind of assisting the students. Was there anything you wanted to add, Juan? I don't hear anything from Juan. Okay.
Just other than they've been doing a great job.
Okay.
The two ladies have been pushing this pretty hard. I want to thank the communications committee for getting word out there, and they're pulling all the heavy lift.
Great. Okay. Well, don't hesitate to call on us, you know, if you
Wait,
want.
sorry. Katie is saying that she's here. She was talking, but I don't know why you guys couldn't hear her, but she said she
All right,
was.
let me see if we can find her.
Okay.
Do you see her?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Oh, okay. I was just saying that Aline covered it, and we're just very excited to get started.
Okay,
so,
great.
Yeah, it wasn't
Excellent.
anything super. But,
Okay,
yeah.
excellent. Well, thank you very much. That's great. I'm glad that we're moving forward with something there, especially since, you know, it's really tough for you guys, guys and gals, to not be able to, you know, be in school and, you know, all that goes with that in high school. Okay, moving on to Board of Elections. I know Dolly is here, and I know David Naiman is also here. Dolly?
Yes.
Do you want to give the report?
Well, I sent in a written report. You want
Oh,
me
that's
to
right.
read-
Let me go get it. Let me go get it. You did send
Right.
a written report.
I thought I'd save you time.
Okay. Where is it? Oh, there it is. VOE report. There we go. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you for doing a written report. Anything you want to talk about here?
No, I mean, like I said, most of the report was Margaret Jurgensen, the election director, and she went over the whole mail-in voting thing. So that's why I thought it was important too to have it in writing.
Okay, great.
Now, David might want to add something.
David?
Hi. So just a couple of things to add. I'm just reading Dolly's report while we're talking. The state board met today. There were two things they did of note that is slightly different than what we've heard before. The first is that the ballot drop boxes are going to be available as soon as they are installed, which could be as early as Tuesday the 19th. It'll definitely be by Thursday the 21st, but it won't necessarily be only on the 21st. But they voted to say that once they're installed, they are going to open them and make them available. And then the other thing that they discussed that was actually at our request, that your all's request, was about what the rules are for signs at the drop-off boxes if they're not at voting centers. And the policy of the state board as of today is that signs are permitted as soon as the drop boxes are operational, or at 5 o'clock on the 20th, which would be under the state law, typically the day before the election at 5 o'clock is when the signs can go up. So basically signs can go up. Remember, the electioneering zone for this election is 100 feet, not 20 feet. But if you're 100 feet away from either the entrance or the drop box, then you can put up signs.
Great.
And other than that, I'm obviously as disappointed as everyone else that our ballots haven't arrived yet. The state puts out those ballots through a contractor. I'm very interested in everyone's thoughts on what can be done to get them to be more efficient. I do think, I mean, they told us anyone who doesn't get a ballot by May 15th, that's when you should start raising questions. And of course, that's tomorrow. So, so maybe if you don't get your ballot tomorrow, people should just start calling. I don't know what else to say at this point. We've been given a number of different dates that haven't panned out. As Linda said earlier, we were just told that on last Saturday, and that the last one should have gone into the mail yesterday. I do not know from where.
I think Minnesota. I think I read Minnesota.
The chart that I
hold
saw.
on a minute. Laura Henderson has her hand up. Laura?
I was just going to say that I had heard on an AARP call a few days ago, unfortunately, that this contractor had literally sent ballots only in Spanish to a number of people in Maryland, and they were very, very upset. And so the contractor was being told to send out ballots in English to those to the English speakers. So I think there may be some real challenges with this contractor, was all I was saying.
I can confirm what you just said. I heard that happened in Prince George's County. And I've also heard just from if you do a Google search of the contractor, that they've had a number of issues in the past. And I would say, let's just keep notes. And if it does turn out that there is, going to be vote by mail for November, maybe we'll have the opportunity for input about this.
Susie, and then Dave Schumacher. Dave Schumacher.
This is Susie. According to the state schedule, Montgomery County's ballots were supposed to have been mailed on the 7th of this month. So, I've been anxiously watching for mine ever since.
Yeah, that clearly didn't happen.
Right. And, I appreciate the work that you have done, David, especially, and Alan and Elise on our behalf. And I'm sure the Republican representatives on our county board have worked for this as well. Although I know that at least some of them believe that voting by mail is fraudulent on its face. But we have to do better in November, and I do think we'll be voting by mail in November as well. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
Thank you, Linda. So speaking of fraudulent, I continue to be concerned about the fact that the State Board of Elections contracts with a company owned by a Russian oligarch. And I'm just curious if it's the same company that is responsible for these mailing screw-ups.
Are you saying they were contracting with a Russian company a long time ago, and then they changed that contract? Are you saying that there's a recent contract of that nature?
If they changed that contract, I never heard about it. So that would be good to know, because last I heard, the Russians owned our voter database, right? So just wondering what the status of that is.
No, that's the contract that has been changed. That's no longer being run by the company that was running it before. I don't remember precisely when that was, but and this is a different contractor. I'm going to get you their name so that you all can can see it for yourselves. But because the name is escaping me right now. But I'm going to have it for you in the chat box in just a minute.
Great, thank you, David.
Okay, anything else for David Naiman? All right, yeah, it's disappointing. I know I believe that I read that they're being mailed from a mail house in Minnesota. And I don't have any idea why that would be the case.
Montgomery counties are.
Yeah.
The other mailing houses are in Florida and I think Ohio, but I'm not sure if that's right.
Yeah,
Do you
I don't
know?
know why they're all no, I don't know. I don't know why they're all different either.
No, I'm asking David Naiman if he.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The other mailing houses are in Florida and I thought Ohio, but I could be wrong about Ohio. Do you know?
All I'm going to try and find you right now is the name of our state's contractor and where they're located. Because as I understand it, they're doing the mailing for this election across the state.
And I did see one complaint from Maryland mail house saying, why didn't we use a mail house in Maryland to do this work? Why did we have to go out of state? I'll just pass that on.
All I would say is I want a mail house that gets the ballots out on time. I don't care where they're located.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you, Dolly. All right, next up is primary election update. Election task force. Here we are. This is, oops, sorry about that. I don't know why that's so small. Scott Goldberg, did you want to introduce this, or do you want to summarize where we are? I don't know that there's much more of an update from where we were before on this, but
I'll just give the less than 60-second highlight.
Okay.
Task force meets Sunday evenings, usually starting at 8:30 after people's kids go to bed, and lasts well into the evening. Very enjoyable group. The in-person voting sites and drop-off locations will have signs asking for volunteers on behalf of the Montgomery County Democratic Party, as well as a phone number if people need help voting, because we do expect that to happen. I'm seeing sort of a seizure-causing change of pictures on the screen. There it is. We have a few precinct officials, and we're ramping this up, contacting inactive voters to make sure they get ballots, but also contacting regular Democratic voters, make sure they know there's a vote by mail system. Those are the highlights. If you want to add anything, Linda, please do.
okay. I don't think so. I think that's about it. We're working on getting materials translated into various languages. Mimi and Shriti Bhatnagar are working on that along with Jasmine.
We do have some online graphics that have been pretty fun.
Yep.
I think next week we'll transition to a number of things that Michael and Brad have put together, but as well as every mailbox is a ballot box so that everyone knows that they can just vote by mail.
Right. So one thing here is we ordered these signs and they are in.
What's the phone number? Is that our new office phone number, 240-812?
No, this is a Google number that we can roll to wherever we want to roll it to. We're having discussions about how we deal with that. It can roll to more than one number even. But that's what that is, Aaron. It's a Google number and it's evergreen. So these are signs we can use for the general election as well. You heard David Naiman talk about how we can put these at drop boxes. They're two-sided. This is on one side and then the phone number thing is on the other side. So that was the printer's idea, and it allows us to have two signs for the price of one. We ordered 100 of these. So I got approval from the executive board, but I need approval from the central committee to pay for those signs. The total cost, including delivery for 100 signs, was $642. That includes the wires. So if I could have a motion to approve that, I would appreciate it. Moved by Aaron. Is there a second?
Second, Moomin.
Second by Moomin. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes. Who's
I
this?
think, this is Susie. I think at this time, the limit the chair can spend without seeking permission from the central committee is $500. I think Juan could probably confirm that. Could we talk about changing that limit to $1,000?
I think we should, we can do that, but I think we should do that at our next meeting simply because I think that a better process might be to have that come through the executive board as a recommendation, or the rules committee as a recommendation to this committee. I would prefer to do it that way.
Okay, can I just put that thought into everyone's mind for the next meeting?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And in terms of these signs, the other thing, let me say, is that Trudy and Dave and I have been talking with the precinct organization folks, the steering committee, about, you know, we're not going to have people sitting at tables during the primary, but what we are going to do is solicit volunteers from the precinct organization to make sure that these signs, you know, are there, that, you know that they don't get stolen, and that we, you know, and that we make sure that they, you know, that they stay there. We're also talking about perhaps deploying them, and we only have 100, but deploying them in maybe some other strategic locations with the help of the precinct organization. We obviously can't give everyone to put in their yard, but you know, it would be good, especially the volunteer message. I think we need to really ramp up our recruitment of volunteers, because I think we want to really get into high gear on our phone banking and outreach, particularly to other swing states once the primary is over. So, that's the thinking there. And I do want to give a shout out to Susie, whose idea it was to do signs, because that makes a lot more sense. And I think, you know, we'll have an effective message here. And let me just say also that in talking to some of the candidates, they're not going to have signs at drop boxes, because why? The people have already filled out, they may have them at the polling places, but at the drop boxes prior to June 2nd, people have already filled out their ballots. So I don't know what the Republicans are going to have, but we may be the only game in town there. So that's a good thing. Okay, anything else on the election task force? Okay, great.
Hey, Linda.
Yes.
This is Sam.
Samantha.
I'm sorry, I'm not on. I'm sorry, I'm not on
sorry. Yeah,
Zoom chat.
Go ahead.
I just had a question about the signs. Is there an option if we have a lot of volunteers who want signs and we think that this is something that's going to be really popular for people to have signs, would there be an option to place another order quickly with the same printing house shortly after the primary, just to kind of prepare for the general? Is that something that's on the horizon, or are we just going to kind of wait and see? My only thinking is, for the timeline, assuming that things are going to kind of go the way they're going, might be better to get an order sooner rather than later.
And the answer to that is yes. And this was a very quick turnaround. Thank you, Scott Goldberg, for recommending Mark Halprin to do this. He was great to work with, and we put the order in on a Friday, and I got them on a Tuesday. They're at my house, by the way. So people, I feel like the Girl Scout cookie chairman. who are Girl Scouts. So, so people are going to come to my house and get them because it doesn't make sense to transport them to the office and then have to set up a time to come to the office. Yes, I think that we can do that, Samantha. I think, you know, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, remember, this did cost us $642. So that's another reason we need to raise money is so we can buy things like this. Yeah, it's not hard to get another batch if we need them.
Cool. Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Okay. Precinct organization report. We had a report oh no, we didn't. Okay, precinct organization report. Dave and Shruti.
Hi, this is Dave. I thought maybe I'd make a few introductory comments and then turn it over to Shruti for her comments, and she can segue into the review and approve lists.
Perfect.
So a couple of points I want to mention is that in your packages this month, you have an update on the status of our recruiting for precinct leaders. I would say we're making very slow progress. We've made some, and we continue our efforts constantly, working with a variety of sources of recruits, including our collaboration with the Volunteer Engagement Committee. But we really would welcome and implore everyone on the Central Committee to refer volunteers to us for these precinct chair and vice chair roles and so forth. So please take a look at the report and the status of vacancies in your district, and please help us as you're able. We'd be grateful for any leads that we can follow up. Having said that, I want to also highlight the fact that we have been active in reaching out in the unprecedented situation of our vote by mail primary election. We have instituted virtual phone banks across the county, going in some cases precinct by precinct, in other cases district by district. We've made hundreds of calls focusing on voters who are inactive and therefore at risk of not receiving mail ballots, and hoping to reach some people and motivate them to take part in the democratic process. I think my personal assessment is that our effectiveness has been uneven over the past couple of weeks. We will continue. We're meeting again on Saturday, and we will discuss our activities between now and June 2nd. And also, I think this is going to turn out to be a really valuable learning experience for us as we look ahead towards the summer and the fall election season. I think that what we have done in the past few weeks is going to position us to be even more effective in the 2020 general election. So I'll stop there and ask Shruti if she'd like to step in and discuss her work in the organization.
Hi everybody, this is Shruti. So just piggybacking on what Dave has shared, a couple of additional details that might be helpful. As he mentioned, we've been doing these virtual phone bankings in a couple of districts. In some districts, the district leads are taking the lead in organizing and working with their precinct leaders. We have requested some feedback on how it's being tracked, how many calls are being made. So we don't have that update yet, but District 20, District 16, I think Dave is helping. And for District 18, I'm the chair, so I've organized one in D18, but a couple of other districts, District 14, District 17, and District are the 2 districts in which we have set up virtual phone banks, and I sent out a message to all precinct leaders, so they are making calls as well. So basically in almost every district, we are trying to make sure there is a district-wide phone bank either set up or somebody willing to set up, in addition to precinct leaders who may be willing to do it. And the reason that we are doing it this way, or at least I'm giving you information that I have, is it's related to WAN access and support, because some leaders have access to WAN and others don't. Some are trained, others are not. Some are comfortable using, others are not. So we just wanted to make sure that there is a way for everyone to be able to participate and not get caught up with making sure everyone has WAN access and has the training, because we don't have enough time for that. So we are just helping people create Action ID accounts and giving them the list, and they are making calls with that. So that I wanted to share that detail just to sort of emphasize that different approaches are being taken to try to make voter contact in different districts the best way possible that we can. That's all I wanted to add.
Okay, do you want to do the
review and
list? Yeah, I have that on here, Shruti. Hold on a second. I can find it somewhere. Bear with me. I know it's here. There it is. Which one do you want to do first, approve or review?
The approve is always faster because it was on review last month. So.
All right, there you go. Okay, take it away.
So hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at the approve list. There were 2 new precinct leaders, one from 14 and 39. And then there were a bunch of edits that were included, 2 from District 14 and 3 from District 15, where precinct leaders were changing positions from vice chair to chair, or a chair moving to vice chair. So I just wanted to see if someone has a motion, unless someone has any questions.
Laura Henderson has a question.
Yes, Laura.
Yes. Hi. Thanks for your report, Shruti and David. One was I wanted to suggest the idea that one way of really attracting a cohort of people to do phone banking that works with some other organizations is to say, after we phone bank collectively, either, the week of such and such or the day of May 15th, we're going to have a happy hour at 8 p.m. so we can both share some things that worked and didn't, and just have fun together and get to know each other. And that is just one organizing tool that's working really well with some other groups. So that's one thing. And then another thought is, in order to try to get the help of every single Central Committee member in the outreach, so that you're able to attract more precinct officials, particularly during this critical year. One idea would be to reach out, with individual emails to each Central Committee member and say, do you already have access to enough phone numbers and emails of people in your district for the recruitment? Or would you like us to provide some contact information to you so you can indeed do quite a bit of outreach to try to find somebody? That was just my idea. Thanks.
Thanks, Laura.
It's a great idea about the happy hour. Think about whether you want to do that. That's a great idea. Thank you, Laura. So we're back on the approval list. And Shruti has presented it. Is there a motion to approve the approval list? I always like to say that, approve the approval list. Is there a motion to
I have a
approve?
question if I can? I'll give the motion.
Yeah, go ahead, Aaron, go ahead.
My question is this: if it is all mail-in because we hit a second wave, of COVID, like Dr. Fauci predicts, are we thinking of creative and fun ways to still engage our precinct officials, even if they won't be sitting at the table on election day? Could they do something that day? I just think it's something worth it. I think it's worth Dave and Trudy thinking about, because I would still want them engaged on that day.
Well, so let me just pitch in, and then I'm sure Dave and Linda might have, because we have been having pretty regular meetings with the steering committee members, which means district leads and other folks, almost every weekend except for the last weekend. And we've been discussing with them on how to, especially the topic of engaging precinct leaders on the day of election or voting days. Well, they don't want to, of course, nobody is going to be physically at the polling sites. The one request we are making is for volunteers from precinct leaders as well as others to help with the placement of sign and monitoring the signs at least 3 times in the day, somebody going and just swinging by to make sure the Democratic Party signs are intact, haven't been uprooted or destroyed. In terms of other fun things to do to engage them that day, I mean, we do have to still talk about that perhaps at this coming weekend's meeting, but in the past, one of the things that has happened is still making phone calls on that day. So if anybody has further ideas, of course, they are welcome, and we'd still bring it up at the steering committee meeting.
Yeah, I think one of the things in the general election, given that we're looking at it, from a national perspective, with respect to the Senate and of course the White House, when I've done this with the DNC over the years, what we do is sometimes we'll switch. So like we'll just have people ready to call, they'll be making calls, and then, okay, now it's time to call Maine, right? And now it's time to call, not California, but now it's time to call Nevada, right? And so I think the state party is envisioning an operation like that. They've talked about a SWAT team and, and that being, a group that can switch, right? And start making those calls. So I think I envision that could be something that could happen on election day, making sure that we get every vote out, right? In the mail or dropped off or whatever. Before we move to the approval list, I see where Moomin has a question.
Yeah. Well, are we talking about the approval list or?
Oh no, you had a question about. I mean.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I was messing around with the documents and I got distracted, didn't see the chat. So go ahead.
Yeah. And okay, so before I get to the question, and Trudy, maybe you can confirm that you've sent the review list to the delegations and no issue, no concern. But my question is, do we have a list of the names of the precinct officials who are actually conducting virtual phone bank? Do we know who they are and what precinct and what district?
So yes, it varies. I mean, so I'll give 2 comments. Like as an example, if District 20 has said that Luke Jones, if he says, well, I'm having a caucus meeting and I'm working with my precinct leaders, then they're the ones who are tracking it, which is why I've asked district leads to let us know, to give us an update on that. Same for D15. They have been very, very active, and they have been working with their own precinct. So they basically said, we are doing our own D15 phone bank. So I asked Gail today if she knew how many calls were being made and who was making it. And the response I got was, well, we know how many calls are made because we can track that, but we don't know exactly who's making it. So they're going to talk about it because Linda and I had discussed it as well. And we do want to know which precinct leaders are making calls. I have been doing outreach individually to precinct leaders as well as district leads, and it really varies because some precinct leaders feel it's not their role to be making phone calls, like, oh, I have delegated it to somebody, or I don't like making phone calls. So after keeping that in mind, where there is so much inconsistency and some precinct leaders are not comfortable even setting it up, it was just coming in the way of us moving forward. So the way that we are doing things, and then I have taken the lead on it. So I'll just say because whether the decision which way it goes, I don't know. But the idea was we need to make the calls. We need to reach out to voters. So let's just set up a phone bank and get the list in the hands of all the precinct leaders who are willing to make the calls. And I got some questions about, is this only my precinct or can I only reach out to my precinct? And I have said to those people, well, here's the list. We need to reach out. So if you can just go ahead and start making calls, that would be of big help, because in some districts, we don't have that many calls to make. Like one of my precinct in D18 only had barely 100 people who are inactive voters, and others have like 400. So if those precinct leaders were done, then they have been encouraged to help with other precincts as well. So the goal really is to try to reach as many voters as we can in the next 10, 15 days.
Yeah. And let me just add that, the calls that we're making now are practice. Okay. I mean, they're important. We want people to vote and, we're doing good work, but they're practice, because when we start, as Laura knows, because she's done this, I know she's done this, when we start calling into Pennsylvania, for example, for the general election, and we start doing persuasion calls to get people to vote for, Joe Biden, those calls are not going to be as easy as these calls. And so we need to get people, used to doing phone banking and, used to calling up the lists and used to doing this, because when we start to get into the nitty gritty of it in the general election, the calls are going to be a lot harder to make, especially when we start calling into swing states. So just make that point.
So that definitely has been really helpful, because previously we were really stuck with a lot of just frustration in terms of people trying to understand how to use WAN. But now, having had this practice, we found ways to sort of get them to start making calls and get more accustomed to doing this. And WAN trainings have been offered as well. And that we have shared little video clips on each and every topic of WAN that people can get familiar with. So I think we are making good, steady progress. It's like Linda, you were saying, it's practice. Right. And I think that we are getting better at it, is what I feel.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing I wanted to point out, Shruti mentioned the WAN training. That is a very good, that's been very good. I attended one, and Tyler is excellent. The trainings are really, really good. I think people get a lot out of them. And there, Shruti has had some specifically for Montgomery County, and then there are also some that Tyler are doing. We do have available some canned videos about how to use WAN. And I did want to mention that in Dave and Shruti's report, there's a reference here to the precinct document repository, which is a really good thing. It's really a Google folder where there are all kinds of documents that precinct leaders can use, including, documents on WAN training, videos on WAN training. There are copies of the signs if they want to download the signs and put them in their window. That's one way to distribute the signs, right?
And also,
go ahead.
Also, the translated
right.
the PDFs and files for all different languages on how the vote by mail process works. So it's in Spanish, French, Amharic, and Korean, Chinese, and Vietnamese.
Right.
And that was thanks to Dr. Z, who sent it to Mimi. So we have blasted that out, and it's been shared pretty widely through social media as well. And the video from State Board of Elections.
Correct. So that's a really, really good resource, and I commend both of you for putting that together. It's really very good. If you want to maybe put it in the chat before the end of the meeting what the Google folder is.
Yes, please.
Because I forget. But anyway, anything else for on that? Before we get to the approval list, I'm going to go back to the approval list.
Well, just one comment that I do want to give shout out to Dave Shoemaker for the digital repository, because he really pushed hard for it, and it's taken months of work from actually several people, but he pushed very hard on making sure that we were working towards it.
Right.
Linda?
Yes.
I'd asked a comment, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Susie. I think everybody should have gotten an email from the State Democratic Party asking for volunteers. You should have gotten it today, yesterday. I can't remember because my days are getting mixed up. So please volunteer there for election work. And Dave Shoemaker, if you could pass that on to your precinct volunteers, that would be very helpful. We need people to help canvass the ballots as they come into the various boards of election around the state.
Need poll watchers, really, right? They're watching the canvassing, right?
Right.
Observers, not counting, they're observing.
This is not door-to-door canvassing. This is not phone banking. This is ballot canvassing. This is watching what happens with the ballots when they get to the various boards of elections.
Right.
So we need people to do that. They may not be doing it in Montgomery County, but they'll be doing it in various counties across the state. They'll be doing it remotely and safely, but it needs to be done.
Right.
So please, you know, if you want to keep them engaged in doing the work, this is something we need to do. Also, if people are not comfortable phone banking with this effort, we did the same thing in 2018, but we did it with texts and postcards. And we paid for the postcards out of our own pockets. We didn't ask MCDCC to pay for them.
Well, there'll be several efforts like that, and
Right.
people won't have to pay them out of their pocket.
Right. Well, we were just in a different place at that time.
Groups. Yeah, we're going to
So
grassroots groups.
right. Well, never mind. Anyway, so I'm just saying there are alternate ways that we can reach out to inactive voters other than phoning them. So consider that as well. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, can we get to the approval list? So here's the approval list. Is there a motion to approve the approval list?
I would like to move.
Okay,
If
moved
Shruti
by Movin.
if Shruti can confirm that it's been shared with the delegation.
Yes, let me take a look at what districts they were. Yes, I believe I have sent these out, yes.
Thank you. So,
All right, so it's been moved by Moomin. Is there a second, please?
I second this.
Mimi seconds. Any discussion on the approval list? All in favor,
This
signify
is
by
Susie.
yes.
Question, I'm not clear. This is all lists are all review lists are shared with the delegations every time. Is that correct?
Yeah, Moomin had reminded me because there was a phase at which I was told that just send it to the district leads and leave it for them to share it with their delegation. So there was a period in between where I was leaving it for the district leads to share that. And then Moomin recently reminded that I need to just do it because it's part of the rules.
Right.
And so yes, after the meetings, generally, I send an update list to the delegation, especially for the ones if they are listed in here, just to them, to let them know of the changes or who's on the list.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yes.
Okay. So any further discussion? All in favor of approving the approval list, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, adopted. Now the review list. Trudy, anything on the review list we should know?
Well, actually the review list looks better than last month's. We have 2 new people from District 16, 1 from 17, 4 from 18, and 1 from 19. There are also some changes, and I did not separate the changes by resignations or moves, but there are 2 precinct leaders who have resigned. One of them in District 19 passed away in January. I just found out recently. And one person from D39 is being moved to the chair position from vice chair because the chair has resigned. So that's pretty much it. I do want to share a comment on maybe slight side of humor. I don't know if it's humorous, but there's been some energy around people who have volunteered. They are not necessarily from the volunteer engagement session. I had a conversation with one of the volunteers to ask how they found out about us. And her comment was, well, when the person in the White House said we should start putting Clorox and all these things, I just have had it and I Googled and I wanted to check how I can help a Democrat get elected, and I found out about the Democratic Party. So she basically went to the MCDCC website then and submitted an application to be a precinct leader.
That's a good one.
So,
Joe Biden, he won't inject you with bleach. That's my favorite campaign. but anyway.
So I've heard that from a couple
Was that
of
referred
people.
by 45?
Yes, recommended by 45.
Yeah, so I've heard that now from a couple of people that was really, I don't know why people had to wait that long to be pushed to the edge, but some of these people there are even people who are not Democrats who are reaching out to help. So
right.
Good question,
right.
Linda.
Yeah, go ahead, Moomin.
Yeah, so this is not about the review list in and of
Well,
itself.
can we do the review list and then get a quick question?
I see a deceased precinct official, and I was going to ask, do we send anything to the family when we find out about a deceased precinct official? Just asking.
So, okay, maybe this is not a question for me, but maybe this would help in answering.
No, this is for us, Central Committee,
yeah, okay.
not for you, Shruti. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we used to send something.
There is on the books a sunshine committee, but we haven't had it in place since.
But we could, we should do that, actually.
I was just going to say that this is District 19, so I don't even know if somebody is at that residence right now. I just have to find out. I found out through a member of one of the Democratic clubs that this person had passed away.
So Susie, why don't you find out and give me contact information, and we'll figure out how we get how we acknowledge and send condolences. Okay.
Thank you.
Me?
No, I'm sorry. Did I say Susie? I meant Shruti. I'm sorry, Shruti. Shruti, find out the contact information and then send it to me, and then we can figure out how we. Sorry about that. How we send condolences. Okay.
Let's talk offline about a routine.
Yeah, we'll get a routine.
Right. That used to be the case all the time, that we got the notifications. But Joyce was a friend of mine, and I never got a notice in any way, shape, or form.
Well, Shruti just found out about it, so.
Yeah, well, I see that she died in January. I also discovered that.
It just so happened that I was talking to somebody about a volunteer who was interested, and the person was from the D19 Democratic Club, and she was offering to help recruit a couple of precinct leaders. And I shared some information on a couple of vacancies that were there, and this particular precinct number came up. And when I mentioned who was in the precinct, the person from the Democratic Club said, "Oh, why do you have her still listed? She passed away in January." So that's the only way that I found out.
So we'll get more information.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I want to say at the same time that I see Sandy Zimmett is actively still in District 19. But if you're sending out some sunshine type of material, be aware that her husband passed away in February.
Yes, and I went to the service on behalf of the Central Committee.
She's the person who told me about.
Joyce?
Yes.
Okay, let's have this discussion offline because it's getting a little bit late, but we do need to do that. I agree. Okay, can I have a motion? We need to approve the review list. Can I have a motion to approve the review list?
So moved.
Great.
Okay.
I second it.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Who moved it? Harold? Did you move it? Oh, Daniel, sorry. I didn't see your picture up there. Daniel moved it, seconded by several. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Now, let me go back to the agenda. I think we're almost done. I'm hoping we're almost done. I'm going to find the agenda on here. Hold on. Bear with me.
Go down.
Go down. There it is. Thank you. Okay. Any new business that anyone wants to bring up? Susie?
Susie just wants to remind everyone that we are now electing, this primary has become about electing delegates to the National Convention. We know that Joe Biden will win the nomination at the National Convention, but we are electing delegates, so please vote for whichever presidential candidate is your first choice, because you will be sending delegates for Biden, Sanders, Warren, Buttigieg. Whoever gets 15% at least of the vote will have delegates represented at the National Convention.
I ask for your vote if you're in Congressional District 6. I'm on the ballot. This is Moomin.
What, Moomin?
Moomin's on the ballot in CD6.
For Klobuchar.
Right. So vote for Klobuchar.
There you go.
Are any other Central Committee members on the ballot?
I am. Don't vote for me.
Yeah, Scott said don't vote for me.
Biden delegates. We need a strong Biden.
Okay. So the Scott says don't vote for him. All right. Any other new business?
All Biden delegates will be elected and will go. It's the other delegates that you have to figure out.
All right. Any other new business? Okay. Any old business? Okay. Any announcements? Okay. I'm going to say that we're not going to have an executive session tonight. Okay. So that means we're actually going to get done 5 minutes early.
Point of order.
Yes.
Can I point out that you've got the new business followed by the old business. Normally that's in the other order.
Okay.
It's usually handling old business and then new business.
Okay. We'll fix it next time. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Wasn't a big deal, but
So moved.
So moved.
Okay. Moved by several. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Hey, listen, everybody, great meeting, great work everybody's doing. Keep up the good work. If we keep doing this, we'll definitely take back the White House and the Senate. Thanks very much.
Amen.
everybody.
Amen.
Night, everybody.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Stay safe. Michael, you gonna end the meeting?